I wish I could tell you this story begins with fireworks and flowers, something worthy of the word love. Instead, it begins with a kitchen timer and the sound of water boiling over. I can still hear my mother shouting from the doorway, "Turn it down, you'll ruin the pot." Like she always did, as if the pot mattered more than whatever feeling was burning on the stove between us. I remember thinking even then that it's funny how some people care so much about the surface, the sheen of a pan, the shape of a smile, while something underneath is charring to black. I didn't know yet that my mother would take that instinct to a place I never imagined. I didn't know she would fake a pregnancy to keep my boyfriend. My name is Lena, and if you knew me in real life, you'd say I'm the reliable friend. The text me when you get home friend. I'm the one who remembers your birthday and asks about your interview, and packs an extra granola bar in case you forgot to eat. I like being that person. Feels like a small way to hold the world steady. But sometimes the world you're holding is a person who's quietly rearranging your furniture, taking your car for a joyride, or in my case, wrapping themselves in a story so outrageous you can't find the edges to peel it off. The night I met Ryan, there was nothing dramatic about it. He was in line behind me at a crowded food truck, gently arguing with the vendor about cilantro. He said it tasted like soap. I said it tasted like summer. He laughed and told me I shouldn't trust a man who's at war with herbs. We were both tired, both hungry, both surprised to discover we weren't tired of each other's conversation. He asked my name like he planned to keep it. I wore a rust-colored sweater, and he told me it made me look like I'd been painted into autumn. He was boyish and warm in a way that had nothing to do with swagger. He listened. When he walked me to my car, he looked at my hands when he asked if he could call me. I said yes because everything in me rose to the surface and waved. Ryan was easy to love. He had the kind of patience you can lean on. He noticed when I was quiet and didn't try to fill the silence with noise. He filled it with presence. When he came home from a long day, he'd sit on the floor and let our neighbor's cat meander into his lap and tell me about small kindnesses he'd seen. A stranger picking up someone else's dropped scarf, the kid on the bus giving up his seat. It felt like standing near a heater you don't have to ask to turn on. My mother, God bless her, God help me, was complicated. She had me young and raised me like I was both her daughter and her proof. Proof she could do it, proof she could love, proof she was more than the men who left. She had strong opinions about everything and wore her fear like a perfume you couldn't quite place. She was beautiful in a way that made people forgive her before she spoke. Men would fold themselves into helpful shapes around her. Women would step in to stabilize the room. When I say she loved me, you might imagine soft words and warm hugs. She did those things. But she loved me also like a project. Like something she could fix into safety with enough supervision. So when she met Ryan, I was nervous. I wanted them to like each other, obviously. But more than that, I wanted them to feel natural. A triangle you don't notice because the sides fit. The first dinner went well. She made biryani the way she does, with too many cardamom pods because she says they're good luck. Ryan complimented the spice. She laughed and said, "Marry him." The way mothers do when they approve of someone's appetite. They chatted about trivial things, traffic, TV shows, a neighbor who watered her plants with a squirt gun. At the end, my mother hugged him a beat too long, but I didn't read into it. I was relieved. The next day she texted me, "He seems kind. Keep him. Our family code." I exhaled. Too soon, almost immediately, she began inviting him separately. A quick stop to drop off containers. A little favor to fix a broken shelf. I tried to shrug it off. He's handy, she's needy. Life is a series of borrowed screwdrivers and Tupperware. He told me every time. He wasn't hiding it. "Your mom called." He'd say on a Tuesday, apologetic, as if my mother's needs were an uninvited relative knocking on his afternoon. She needed help moving a potted plant. It was heavy. He'd laugh. It was a cactus named King. I should have paid attention to the pace. How often she found reasons to be near him. The way she developed opinions about his work hours, his rest, his driving routes. Tell him to avoid the ring road after 6. How she commented on his shirts with the brisk intimacy of ownership. "You look good in blue." I told myself a story you might recognize if you come from a family where women take care of men as if caregiving might turn the men into something safer. I told myself she was grateful to see someone treat me well. That she was simply relieved. After all, my father had evaporated like a puddle on hot concrete when I was 2. The echo of that abandonment made her look at any good man like rain after drought, but it shifted slowly into something else. A possessiveness that wore the mask of motherly concern. "Don't overwork him," she said to me once, and I blinked confused. "Make sure he's eating." "Mom," I laughed, "I'm not his boss. You're his person," she said pointedly, and I remember feeling like I'd been handed a workbook with instructions written in a language I didn't fully understand. Then came the seed, the moment I can look back at and say, there. That's where the river decided to change course. We were at the night market, the one with fairy lights strung like a constellation clinging to poles. A fortune teller had set up a velvet-draped table. We went as a joke, a way to end the evening with giggles. My mother insisted on going first. She held out her palm like a crown. The woman traced a line and said, "A great change is coming. A child will choose you." My mother looked at me, eyes bright. "Did you hear that? Everyone hears what they want at those places," I teased. She looked back at the fortune teller. "A child will choose me," she repeated, as if language could bully fate into obedience. The next day, she went silent for hours, which for my mother was unusual enough to pinch. She phoned me at midnight. "I couldn't sleep," she said. "I had a dream of a baby. A real dream, soft hair, small hands. Lena, it's time. I know you said you wanted to wait, but what if waiting is how we lose good things? Life doesn't always knock twice." I loved Ryan. I could imagine a baby with his gentle eyes and my stubborn chin. But I also had a plan. We had agreed to finish paying off our debts, to stabilize our work, to travel once just for joy, not for weddings or obligations. "We said 2 years, I reminded her. 2 years, she mocked softly, not unkindly, but with that tone she uses when she thinks I'm pretending at adulthood. Life laughs at calendars. "Maybe," I said, "but I like mine." We hung up with the little friction that comes when a mother believes she is wiser, and a daughter refuses to bend because wisdom feels like a word for someone else's fears. For a few weeks she let it drop. Then the symptoms began. She mentioned feeling tired. "Take your vitamins," I said, reflexively daughtering her. She complained about nausea. "Maybe you caught a bug." She texted me photos of saltines and ginger tea. "I'm 39, she said dramatically, "and my body feels 70. One afternoon, I arrived at her apartment to drop off a scarf she'd left in my car and found her in the bathroom, staring at a small white stick with a pink line. I froze. The world lurched. "What is that?" She looked up at me with eyes wide in a way that was not fear but performance. I didn't think. "Lena, I'm late. I took a test. It's positive." The word rang like a dropped bell. Positive. My mind ran through possibilities at high speed, bumping against furniture. She hadn't mentioned seeing anyone. She hadn't brought a man home. She mentioned menopause jokes at dinner like punctuation. "How?" I began, then swallowed the tone that wanted to ask differently and said carefully, Who's the father?" Her mouth trembled in a theatrical way that, in the moment, I read as shock. She whispered, "It must be a false positive. I mean, at my age." We sat on the floor. I held her hand. I Googled false positive pregnancy tests late 30s and read articles about evaporation lines and hormone imbalances. By the time I left, we had calmed ourselves into "we'll see a doctor." She made me promise to keep it to myself. "No reason to worry anyone," she said, glancing at her phone where Ryan's name glowed in a recent call. I didn't tell him. Not because I wanted to keep secrets, but because it felt like the kind of news a person should be allowed to carry alone until they're ready to share. My mother had no partner to whisper the raw truth to at midnight. I would be that person. The next week, she insisted on coming to our place for dinner. She arrived with flowers and a softness in her step I hadn't seen before. Over dessert, she touched her belly absently, the way pregnant women on TV do even before there's something to touch. Ryan noticed. "You okay, Auntie?" he asked gently. She smiled sweetly. "Just tired." When I walked her to her car, she pulled me close. "I'm going to tell him," she said. "Don't be upset. He's family." "Tell him what?" I asked, my voice a thin wire. "That I might be pregnant," she said. "I want him to treat me gently in the weeks ahead." Then, seeing my surprise, she added, "He's good in a crisis. You and he are a unit. I'm just looping him in. It still seemed bizarre. But in a house where lines have always felt like suggestions, it was not unprecedented. My mother treated closeness like a communal room. If she could sit in it, so could everyone she decided belonged. Ryan handled it the way he handles everything, calm, kind, a little stunned. He fussed over her meal choices, he offered to drive her to appointments. He and I lay awake that night, processing. A baby in the family, he whispered. Unexpected, but a new chapter? He's an optimist who holds his optimism with humility. I love that about him. I fell asleep with my ear on his chest, letting his steady heartbeat do what lullabies do. 2 days later, my mother called me at work, crying. It wasn't a false positive, she said breathlessly. They confirmed it. I'm pregnant. My pin dropped. The room blurred. I stumbled into a stairwell, a place I go when the walls of my life begin to tilt. The doctor had run blood work, she said. The levels were high. She had a due date. I asked to see the report to go to the next appointment. She hesitated. You're busy, she said. And I'm old enough to go alone. I insisted. She relented, grudgingly, like someone offering a sample of something she meant to keep. That night Ryan held me. This is wild, he said. But we'll support her. The way his eyes softened when he said it made me ache. He loves my mother because she's mine. It's a dangerous equation. It makes your loved ones extensions of you. And if someone wants you badly enough, they'll try to love what you love just to be close. The following weeks were a blur of morning sickness texts and dramatic sighs. My mother told anyone who would listen, aunties, neighbors, the pharmacist who gave her prenatal vitamins. She used phrases like miracle and at my age, can you imagine? She took photos of her belly in the mirror, pushing it out just so, crying about how everything hurt. I kept looking for something to ease the knot in my stomach, but every time I asked for specifics, doctor names, scans, she would wave me off with a flurry of words. What are you, the pregnancy police? She joked. Relax. You'll give the baby stress. She spent more time at our apartment. At first it made sense, she said my place made her feel safe. But she began arriving unannounced, letting herself in with the spare key for emergencies. She rearranged my pantry. She criticized the detergent I bought. She scolded Ryan for carrying groceries wrong. She cried when I asked for notice. You're pushing me out, she wailed. I'm the one who raised you, and now that I need you, you're too busy. The guilt curled around my throat like a hand. One evening, I came home to find Ryan and my mother on the couch. She was crying softly. He looked torn. I sat down, careful, the way you sit next to a fire you're not sure is contained. My mother took a breath. I didn't want to tell you like this, she said. But the baby's father, he left. He said he's not ready. He blocked my number. The floor under me shifted. Who is he? I asked, heart pounding. What's his name? A man from the building, she said vaguely. It doesn't matter. He's worthless. She folded herself into Ryan's shoulder and he patted her back, outraged on her behalf, his tenderness pooling in places I'd never seen. Something in me sparked, envy, yes, but not of the attention, of the way she had made herself the center of his chivalry. I hated myself for the thought. She's your mother, I scolded. She needs comfort. But the current was there, undeniable. A pull, a triangle where one point wanted too much. I decided to take control the only way I knew, facts. I called the clinic number she had texted earlier to ask about appointment details. The receptionist took my name and paused. We don't have a patient by that name, she said. Maybe you have the wrong clinic. Maybe she used a different last name? I hung up, shaking. When I asked my mother, she was ready with a laugh. Oh, sweetheart. I must have sent you an old number. You know me in technology. She recited a new clinic name. That one had a patient with her name. The appointment was tomorrow at 10. I planned to go. The next morning, she insisted I drop her and then leave. The doctor's office is tiny. They don't allow guests. I rolled my eyes. Since when? She pouted, then relented. Fine, come, but don't make a big deal of it. We arrived at a building I recognized, an urgent care facility with a small OB wing. At the counter, the nurse asked for my mother's date of birth and appointment time. My mother fumbled. I spoke to Dr. Shah, she said. The nurse frowned. Dr. Shah is out today. She typed, "We don't have you on the schedule." My mother's face went white, then pink, then something like annoyed. I must have mixed up the date. "Let's just schedule you now," I said too brightly. The nurse handed us forms. We sat. My mother's pen hovered. I watched her leave the last menstrual period line blank, as if the story had run out of details. My chest was a hive. I reached into my bag for water. When I looked up, she was crying loudly, hands covering her face. "I can't," she moaned. "I can't do this today." She stood and fled the waiting room. We argued in the car. "Why aren't you letting me help?" I said. "This is our family." She slammed her palm against the dashboard. "Don't you dare call the baby yours," she snapped, and I flinched. "You'll have your time. This one is mine." The words were a crack in the glass. I saw at last, not a fragile woman needing care, but a force of wanting, determined to bend the world into a shape that held her at the center. I told myself I needed proof before I accused her of the unthinkable. I prayed, oh I did, that there was a reality here more ordinary than the one I feared. That night, Ryan and I fought for the first time in a way that wasn't just a difference of opinion, but a difference of approach to the truth. "She's scared," he said, rubbing his temples. "She's alone. We have to be patient." "Patience is not the same as pretending," I said. "Something is off. You know it. Don't make me be the only one who says it out loud." He stared at the floor. "I know," he whispered. "I know. But it feels cruel to push." The next day, I asked my mother for the ultrasound. She sent me a photo, a grainy black and white printout, the kind every pregnant woman posts with heart emojis. I zoomed in, my breath suspended. There it was, the date. 2 months earlier. Another woman's name at the top, badly cropped. I enlarged the corner and saw a watermark from a maternity forum. The kind where people share their news to strangers who shower them with congratulations. My stomach dropped. The room went cold. My hands began to buzz. I called her. "Where did you get that image?" "From the doctor," she said breezily. "Whose name is this?" I asked, my voice flat. She hesitated, then laughed, airy and false. "Oh, silly. They must have made a mistake." "Stop," I said. "Stop lying. It's from the internet." Silence stretched, taut as wire. Then she snapped. "Well, what did you want me to do? Nobody listens unless you have a story. You and your perfect boyfriend and your careful plans. I was disappearing, Lena. I was becoming a ghost in my own life." The words landed like stones. "So you stole mine?" "I borrowed it," she said, and the word was a wound. Just until I felt held again. "What about the father who left?" I asked, bitter. "Another borrowed detail?" She pressed her lips together. "He left before he arrived," she said after a beat, proud of the line, like a woman in a drama who loves a metaphor more than a mirror. I told Ryan that night. He sat very still, his jaw tightening, his eyes wet. "She told me she needed me," he whispered. "She said I reminded her of what your father should have been." She said, he swallowed. "She said we were a family, the three of us." The three of us. My cheeks burned. "She doesn't want a daughter and her partner," I said, disgust and grief braided in my throat. "She wants a man and his adoration, and she found a way to claim yours without asking me to give it." We called her together, set a boundary sharp as a knife. No more talk of pregnancy. No more unannounced visits. Therapy if she wanted to be in our lives. She screamed. She cried. She hung up. She sent a voice note later full of gasps and Bible verses. Then a photo of a baby blanket on a chair with the caption, "You've killed my joy." I blocked her for the night, peeled myself off the couch, and got in the shower fully dressed. The water soaked me. I stood there until the hot ran out, and then a little longer. For days the house felt like a held breath. Ryan and I moved around each other gently, like you do after an earthquake, testing the floorboards, checking the cabinets for cracks. He kept reaching for my hand. I kept needing both hands free, to scrub, to list, to find anchors. I was furious at myself for letting it get this far. I was furious at my mother for turning our love into a stage where she could perform need. I was furious at the fortune teller, at fate, at cilantro for being so stupidly controversial, and starting this story on a night that had felt like the beginning of a gentle life. Then, because life is an opportunist, My mother posted her pregnancy news on Facebook. A smiling selfie, a caption about miracles, a flood of comments from aunties with heart emojis and blessings, old friends with congratulations, men she used to know offering, if you need anything. My phone lit up with relatives. Is it true? MashaAllah. When is the baby shower? I wanted to disappear. Instead, I wrote a small factual comment. This is not true. My mother is going through something and needs privacy. I turned off my phone and threw it into my sock drawer like a grenade. The fallout was biblical. My aunt called to scold me for shaming my mother. My mother texted in all caps. Ryan's mother called me to say she loved me and was worried. I cried so hard I gave myself a migraine. This is the part where stories often take a dramatic turn toward justice ambulances, interventions, public apologies. Mine took a smaller turn. A therapy office with soft chairs and a box of tissues that made me think of tiny white flags. I went first. I told the therapist everything, trying not to look at my reflection in the window because I didn't want to see my face when I said the sentence out loud. My mother faked a pregnancy to keep my boyfriend close. The therapist didn't flinch. Bless her for that. She told me gently that some people confuse love with possession because somewhere along the way, they learned they were only as valuable as the attention they could hold. She told me my mother sounded like a person afraid of irrelevance, a person willing to set a building on fire just to have people gather around the light. She told me that it is not my job to be the fire department. Ryan came with me the next week. He apologized for being slow to see it, slow to name it. I wanted to protect her, he said, because I learned to protect women as a way to be a good man. I forgot that protecting you sometimes means not letting another woman put you on a hook and hang her emptiness on you. We met my mother there a month later. She arrived grandly late, sat delicately, cried delicately, lied less delicately. The therapist didn't try to catch her in lies. She invited her to tell the truth she was most afraid of. Came out in shards. She was jealous. Not in the crude way people mean when they say jealous, but in the soft, sticky way of a woman who had built her life around someone and realized that person had spun away into her own orbit. I was the story, my mother said hoarsely. Then suddenly I was a footnote in yours. I wanted to be the headline again. By stealing my headline? I asked, not kindly because kindness felt like chalk on a wet sidewalk. I thought it would force you to hold me, she whispered. I thought if he loved the idea of a baby, he would love the nest. I thought he would love me too. Not, she added quickly, catching herself. Not like that. Not romantically. I just wanted to be indispensable. I sat very still. Mom, I said, I can love you without losing myself, but I won't love you if loving you means handing you the controls to my life. She looked bewildered. But I did that for you. Yes, I said softly, and it nearly wrecked us both. It wasn't easy after that. There's no montage for boundary setting. It's boring and repetitive and people mistake boredom for cruelty. We set clear rules. We unshared our location. We asked for space like rent. We insisted she see a counselor. She screamed less and then more and then less, like she was learning a song and couldn't find the key. We missed birthdays. We sent cards without visits. She posted a corrective note without an apology. I accepted it like a medicine I didn't enjoy but needed. Ryan and I got married on a Tuesday courthouse morning because the idea of a big wedding with 1,000 opinions made my lungs feel like they were shrinking. We wore simple clothes. I carried tulips because they are flowers that don't ask for too much attention. After we signed the papers, we ate falafel in the car and kissed like two people who had held each other's wrists while walking through a storm. Later, we told our families in a group video call. My mother cried. I thought I'd be there, she whispered. I know what you thought, I said gently. But what we needed was different. She came around slowly in the way people do when they realize their tricks don't work anymore. She learned to text before showing up. She learned to say, may I? Before I will. She sometimes slipped and then caught herself, apologized not because she was caught but because she meant it. I gave her small tasks: bring dessert, send recipes to let her be useful in ways that didn't rearrange my cupboards or my sanity. 2 years later, when I did get pregnant, we waited to tell her until after the second scan. I was terrified. Not of what she would do exactly, but of what the telling would do to us. We invited her over and put the ultrasound photo on the table. She stared at it, then at me. Her hands trembled. I expected a performance, I got a quiet. She whispered, "Thank you for telling me when you were ready." She asked if she could knit a blanket. "Blue or yellow?" she asked, as if the world had returned to a place where two colors could express all the ways love chooses to be soft. I cried into her shoulder the night the baby kicked hard enough to make a little wave. "I'm scared," I admitted, "of loving so much it rearranges my bones." She smoothed my hair. "It does," she said, the truth even she couldn't make prettier. "But your bones grow back around the love stronger." She didn't tell me what to do. She didn't take the moment and make it hers. She sat beside me in my fear and didn't try to drive. When our daughter was born, my mother held her like a secret she was finally allowed to keep. She didn't tell anyone before I did. She didn't post photos I hadn't approved. She came over with soup and left before I needed to ask. Sometimes she would stand at the window and look out like she was remembering the street where she learned to be lonely. Once, when the baby was asleep and the house smelled like milk and exhaustion, she said, "I'm sorry." I looked up, surprised by the unprompted confession. "For the performance," she clarified, a small, wry smile at her own expense. "For thinking I could make people stay by distracting them." I squeezed her hand. "Thank you for saying it. There are days I still feel the ghost of that old panic if my phone buzzes too many times, if my doorbell rings without a text first, if my mother's name lights up my screen at 2 a.m. But the past tense is a skill you practice the way you practice piano or faith. You move your fingers through the notes of what happened and you make music out of it so it doesn't turn into noise. If you've listened this far, if you've been where I was caught between allegiance and self-preservation, this is what I know: love is not a shape you contort yourself to fit. Love is furniture you arrange so there is room for everyone to sit without their knees touching in ways that make them forget their own outlines. Your mother's need is not your emergency. Your partner's kindness is not a resource for anyone else to spend. You can be generous without handing over your passwords. You can forgive without forgetting the map. Sometimes the people who raised us taught us to equate proximity with safety. But safety is not close. It's clear. It's soft boundaries that harden when pressed. It's letting people feel the boredom of not being the main event and discovering they survive it. I still keep the photo of that fake ultrasound in a folder on my computer labeled "Things I Lived Through." Not because I want to revisit the lie, but because it reminds me what hunger looks like when it dresses in hope. It reminds me that even the most outrageous betrayal is often a clumsy love letter someone writes to themselves because they forgot how to ask for a hug. If you're standing in your kitchen right now, listening to water boil over while someone you love tells you a story that doesn't quite make sense, I hope you hear the difference between steam and alarm. I hope you trust your gut, even if it makes you the villain in someone else's drama. I hope you understand that you can be kind and say no in the same sentence, and that the world doesn't end when you do. It gets smaller and safer and somehow, paradoxically, kinder. My mother faked a pregnancy to keep my boyfriend. That sentence once felt like a building falling on my chest. Now it's a story I survived. A story that taught me what to guard and what to give. A story that, in the end, let me build a home where the timer can ring and the pot can boil, and the people in the kitchen know that nothing matters more than turning down the heat together before it burns.